when you engage the cells, it's not metabolic, it's not I lose weight, I break down fat. When you cross day 3 and use touching, autophagy, and regeneration, we call that periodic or prolonged fasting after day 3. This is where the cells are engaged. So look what happens now in 5 days. You are restructuring all the metabolic part of the body, losing weight, losing fat, which improves cholesterol, triglyceride, blood pressure, blood inflammation. So it's a full metabolic reset. On top of that, you're restructuring your cells.
Today's guest is Dr. Joseph Antoun, a physician, entrepreneur, and longevity pioneer whose work is changing how we think about aging. Here's a statistic he shared that may stop you like it did me. 87% of deaths come from 4 lifestyle-driven diseases, not genetics. We talk about how fasting helps the body repair itself and the science behind it, why modern life accelerates aging, and how stress, when managed, becomes medicine. Dr. Antoun shares his own daily rhythm of mindful eating, movement, and purpose, reminding us that health is stewardship, not luck. His message is both scientific and deeply human. Longevity is about adding life to our years, not just years to our life. Let's start the show. Dr. Antoun, very excited to have you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Marcus. Hopefully we're going to change somebody's life today.
I love that idea. So speaking of life, this is where I want to kick off. You have spent the better part of your more professional career studying longevity. You've done some work with Dr. Walter Longo as well. So I want to kick it off with longevity lifespan. I want to talk more about health span, but I was pulling some statistics in advance of this. And so in 2010 in the US, the average lifespan for a male was 76.2, for a female it was 81. By 2023, it was 75.8 and 81.1. So women ticked up a little bit, men ticked down a little bit. But by comparison to some of the other first world countries, we're lagging behind. So Japan's 81 and 87, Switzerland's 84, Canada's close to 82. What do you think is our biggest challenge right now in the West, but certainly in the US, I think is probably most relevant.
Great question. And just to add to your statistics, we actually lost half a year from 23 to 24. We even lost. So in the early 2000s, it is when I graduated from med school. We used to, and then I did my policy studies at Harvard. I remember we used to spend 2.2 trillion on healthcare per year. So now we exceeded 4 trillion per year, 4 trillion, and we lost half a year, right? So these are important statistics, not to say how bad it is, but also when you see a trend changing, because in medicine, and again, I'm an MD PhD, so I'm coming from that field, they tell us it's genetics, right? They tell us this is it's not. When things change so drastically, it means there's a lifestyle, something happening in the way we live, right? And it's all about, we're accelerating our age. And let me talk about that. So there are 5 pillars for longevity: nutrition, exercise, stress, sleep, and social capital. Okay. And so I'm happy to talk in detail about each, but there's a notion that I want to introduce in here, which is 80% of us, 87% of us, so almost 9 out of 10 times, we're not going to die from a car crash or from a whatever shooting incident. We're going to die out of 4 healthcare conditions: cardiovascular, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, right? So what we missed in medicine, and this is why we're not getting it right in the US, to answer your question, we did not understand that these are driven by lifestyle. All these 4 conditions, yes, 2 to 3% is genetic. Yes, 4%, whatever, is genetic. But the main reason behind those diseases, or the early onset of those diseases, is the way we're living our lives. We're not eating healthy, going back to the pillars. We're not eating healthy. We're exercising less. We're stressing more. We're decreasing the quality of our sleep. And we have less social capital. This is actually very important. Social capital means your friends, are you well nested? Are you with your family? Or you're divorced and stressed? Are you separated from your kids? Are you meditating or you're praying? Are you spending quality time with loved ones at night or not? This is a very important, actually. One of the most common denominators for people living 100 and beyond is social capital. Bigger than nutrition, bigger than exercise, they're just happy, well nested, right? We're losing all these 5 pillars in the US. What's happening is this accelerates our aging. And when you're biologically older, because you're pushing your age through unhealthy nutrition, you're pushing your but with through stress, your aging factors and all that. The more you accelerate your bio age, the more you're going to hit the four chronic diseases that we talked about. And this is where medicine missed. You don't get diabetes at age 20. You don't get heart attack at age 22. Even if you have the ApoE gene, you're not going to get Alzheimer's at age 25. We missed that. Medicine has never thought that we get older. And you say it naturally. You say, "Oh, my pop is 82, so he's weak. He has Alzheimer's." We take it as granted, but this is why he has Alzheimer's. This is why he had a cardiovascular disease. So we gotta to reform the system and to close to the answer to why in the West and in the US we are actually doing much worse on the pillars of longevity. We're accelerating our biological age. So when you're 65 from the outside, you're actually chronologically, you're actually 75 from the inside and you're hitting Alzheimer's already. Our kids now are getting diabetes at earlier stage. We're getting heart attacks in our 40s, and we're getting breast cancer now at rates that are unbelievable and early stage in life because we're older from the inside because of our lifestyle. And this is what's happening, is why we're losing both on health span and on lifespan in the US.
There's a lot of directions that I want to go because you touched on a number of different subjects, social capital being one of them, and I think you travel all over the world, you speak to this topic, you interact with a number of different cultures. I can't, as you were talking, I was thinking there two things kept coming up in my mind. One is the way our insurance system governs the way uh, we take care of ourselves medicinally, which is reactive rather than proactive. It is not preventative. I mean, a family member, one of my cousins ended up having um, cancer in his intestines. And so I ended up wanting to get a colonoscopy at 41. And the hurdles I had to jump through, even if I was paying for it, I was coming out of pocket. It was very clear that, the insurance was not going to cover it. I had to go through different doctors to say, to actually get the prescription and to vet me and to put me into that category. But it was mind blowing to think that despite the fact that I wanted to take care of it, there were institutional level hurdles that were preventing me from doing it. So that's one thing. The second thing I keep thinking of is maybe post World War II, when we started to shove our pantries full of processed foods, and the our industrial complex started to push more of that type of sugar, high fructose corn syrup, a lot of corn just in general down our gullets. You combine that with the 2000s, 2010s technology where you become more sedentary. These are all factors that are playing in my mind. I'm curious about. So there's sort of two parallel paths I'm asking you about. One is there's an institutional world, right? The way our government runs, the way we interact with it, that seems to be coming against us. So I think I can't rely on that. I have to rely on myself. I have to be a self-advocate. And fortunately, I actually think one of the benefits of technology is we're starting to find people like you. We're finding a lot of democratized types of medicinal advice, proactive anti-aging advice, health span advice. Some is nonsense, some is guru nonsense, but there's some signal there still, nonetheless. But the second thing is why, so one, how can we sort of protect ourselves as a self-advocate? But secondly, how do we change that institution when compared to some of these? When you're talking about centenarians, I'm assuming you're referring to like the blue zones, right? In Japan or in Costa Rica and Italy, where a higher percentage of people are living into their hundreds, in large part because of what you're saying, this social community of a sort of a daily card game or a daily like hangout session, even with more wine consumption, it seems like, compared to some other countries, including us. So I've dropped a lot on you, but the self-advocacy and sort of the distinction between our cultures, I want to highlight a little bit more because I want to educate the audience, myself, on how to be a better participant, to be more proactive about reversing that biological age, or at least halting it, so that it is not a foregone conclusion. I have parents and grandparents, that'll say, well, I'm old, I'm getting old, but I'm in a jujitsu class with a 75-year-old and that guy's grappling with the best of them. And it's like, it is not an age thing.
Well, to a certain extent, you can deal with that and you can reverse the bioage. You're right. I mean, you're touching on a topic that I love. I founded the Global Health Span Policy Institute. I taught health system reform at U of Chicago. I keynoted the Health Span Summit last week in LA. These are the exact, you just hit on the two merging topics because in the US, we decided to have a more private system insurance, right? So if when the countries you give data on longevity from on lifespan from Canada, from Japan, from UK. What's common to these countries, they elected to consider healthcare as a human right, as a citizen right, and therefore they run it under a single payer system. Now, if you're managing, say you're the head of the Ministry of Health, right, in Canada, and if you're running the entire system and you have to manage people from the day they're born to the day they're dying, now you look at their life, full life, and you say, how can I save money, right? And then you become more preventative. And then you pay for earlier diagnostic. And then you take earlier cost effective drugs, et cetera, et cetera. The system in the US is the opposite. Here, the system makes money when we're sick. Nobody has the incentive for you to do the insurance. If the insurance is going to cover your prevent, because people stay on average 2.5 to 4 years with their insurance. Why they would pay for your screening since you're not going to be with them most probably by the time you have cancer, or they're not going to pay for your treatment. So you're just a liability on their P&L this year, and all the C-suites running that company are just going to lose their bonuses if people like you come in and start doing colonoscopy at age 41, right? And now there's blood tests, like a company called Gallery and others. They do blood tests and they screen much earlier the cancer. It's not just colon. So the incentive is that the doctor makes money here if you're sick. In the UK, the doctor loses money if you're sick. They share a pool, and the pool is equal of total per capita pay minus the cost. So they're sharing the bonus on saving money in the system. This is how the UK health system is built. Over here, if you're healthy, we have a program called the Fasting Mimicking Nutrition for diabetes. It is
Which I want to talk about for the record.
it's
Just want to plant that
just
seed.
to give you an example, it's 700% better than the current medication in reversing the condition. 700%. You talk to endocrinologists, they say it takes us out of work, right? If the patient goes off insulin and off the GLP-1 and the Ozempics, etc., they go back to the internal medicine doctor, the family practitioner. They don't stay with the endocrinologist. They lose work by you getting cured, by you getting healthier. So and the hospital loses money and everyone loses money, right? This is what Obama tried a little bit to deal with by forming this accountable care organizations, what they called ACOs. They're putting both the doctors and the hospitals accountable for you consuming healthcare. We're not there fully yet, but at least we got to rethink how two ways. Either we become also a single payer system, which doesn't look like it's going to happen, nor I'm saying it should, or we put healthcare in the hands of the people. And this is what's happening with technology, with rings, with the apps, with the self-centered healthcare, where we're saying, you know what? The only person that cares more about me than my doctor is me. But you got to make sure that I'm well educated, that I'm well equipped, and AI will add another layer of this to take care of myself. There was still an issue of means, who can pay for that, who cannot, who has access, and this is another social or bioethical thing to deal with. But at least in the US, we're reshaping healthcare now. There's a new wave of integrative and functional medicine docs that care about your health span and longevity. There are new technologies coming in, and we're one of them at L-Nutra and the Prolon to keep you healthy at home. But it's you that have to be well informed. Unfortunately, your doctor is conflicted, your insurance is conflicted, and your hospital is conflicted. We're putting back healthcare in your hand, and hopefully we're going to equip you in the next 5 to 10 years with AI, with new technologies to make right information and buy the right care for preventive care for yourself.
Well, I love that you bring up the wearables because I did want to talk about that with you. Recently heard an interview with the Whoop founder, who had said something I never really contemplated before, but it made a lot of sense, which was that a lot of these wearable technologies, does it make more sense for these insurance companies, these conglomerates, these huge institutions to start and infiltrate into the wearable space, or does it make more sense for the wearables to start um, offering some form of insurance to those that are wearing it because they can track so much of the data relative to your own performance, your own longevity. So the risk factors are, outside the, jumping off a plane or riding a motorcycle. As far as your, the
Yeah.
big four that you were mentioning, there seems to be a much higher statistical probability for them to underwrite your well-being
Yes.
and price it better and to actually be incentivized for having a longer term relationship with that patient. Do you see that happening?
100%. And it started with HSA and FSA, and now it's starting with full reimbursement, right? And why? Because the wearables were the missing, quantifying the benefit of prevention, not in a long term projection, in the net present value was the missing piece for insurance to step in. Insurances, you remember I mentioned the doctors are conflicted, the hospital is conflicted, but the insurance are not, because insurance is out of their pocket. The expenses coming out of their pocket, and they're conflicted if they're going to pay for something is going to help you on the long term. But if you show benefits on the short term, then you're actually game for them. And the wearables added a good dimension for companies like ours, right? So I'm sitting on a nutrition company, on a food as medicine company. And now 80% of my portfolio of products is fully reimbursed by Medicare, Medicaid, and 134 insurances, fully reimbursed, no copay, no deductible, because there was quantification on the impact of those intervention, the food as medicine, on diseases. So phase one is, oh, you're sick, you're already costing me too much. Can I add a whoop? Can I add food as medicine to quickly save on my budget this year? Then you go to what we call, this is secondary prevention, meaning you already got sick. I'm preventing you from going sicker. That makes sense for them on the short term. Now, there's primary prevention or at diagnosis. Oh, you're pre-diabetic. Okay, maybe it makes sense for me to pay for your Whoop, your Oura Ring, maybe your Prolon, etc., etc. But show me that is going to save you money in the short term. And the wearables came to quantify, and the ease of doing labs at home, etc., to quantify that. So you're seeing now a second layer of reimbursement happening, which is on that onset or pre-disease. Now, for a full preventative and longevity intervention, this is where you really need like a single payer system or a self-incentivization to that. I don't think any soon the insurance will pay for something that starts at age 30, because no insurance can guarantee that you're going to be with them when you're 55 and they're saying you.
Right. So of the four, remind me. So it was diabetes, cardiovascular disease,
Cancer,
Alzheimer's,
and cancer.
and what was the last one?
Cancer.
Cancer. Let's just talk about, because to some degree, cancer can. I can't really speak to Alzheimer's, but I can see a way that overconsumption, sedentary lifestyle, metabolic syndrome all contribute to the prospect of potential cancer, but certainly to metabolic conditions and our cardiovascular conditions. How do you, where do you think we're going wrong there? How do we reverse that trend? Where do you think GLPs play into that in the peptide world, which is sort of like the hottest topic ever in today's world? Like, do you think there are, one thing that the wearables seem to be implementing is a little bit of a gamification relative to activity and nutrition. A lot of people talk about diet. Diets have always been something that have been brought up. It was Atkins, it was paleo, it was keto, all these sorts of things. But at the bottom line, I think if someone can absorb a sustainable lifestyle that can be implemented repeatedly in perpetuity without a tremendous amount of friction, my thought would be that our caloric consumption should be in line. I mean, isn't that sort of the bottom line? If you were to boil it down to a very simple equation, is caloric intake and in relation to your calories burned?
No, it's three dimensions. It's calorie, is when do you eat, explain all, and is are you resetting the body? And I'll talk about that. Before I touch on those three, this is critical. You said you understand diabetes and prevention, maybe cancer. You left Alzheimer's out. Just to let you know, Alzheimer's today, we're calling it diabetes type 3, right?
Oh, weird. Okay, so thank you for bringing this
Of
up.
course, because the same pathways of insulin resistance, fat, aging are actually super highly correlative with Alzheimer's. Number two, this is why there's a big fight now against plastics, why we're all drinking out of these plastic bottles. Then actually, we're finding a lot of microplastic deposits in arteries, including the heart, which might be the explanation why we're having, when somebody has high inflammatory reaction, the plaque breaks and then you have a heart attack. Same thing now. They're seeing a lot of them in the arteries leading to the brain and maybe the brain. And there's a lot of microplastic and nanoplastic research now that could end up being correlated with Alzheimer's. It's the same toxicity, it's the same aging that is leading to. It makes sense. I mean, look, it's very easy. You drive, when you buy a car, one of the most important factors that determines the price is the mileage. You say, okay, it's an unused car, it's a new, it's young, right? And then the car ages, and then in medicine we say, no, no, no. Yes, the mirrors can or the windows, the automatic thing could go wrong, but if the engine goes wrong, this is a manufacturing. With after 20 years that you drive the car and the engine goes wrong, it's a manufacturing issue. No, it's not. One day it's going to be the wheel that's going to be worn down. One day it's going to be the mirror. One day it's going to be the engine. It's all the same aging mechanism. Now, if you add more insult to it, you overdrive it, right? You eat unhealthy, you stress the car, it's going to wear down faster. That's exactly, it makes perfect sense. Every organ in the body is aging. Every organ is getting the toxicity of the stress, the toxicity of the microplastic, the toxicity of the preservative in the food. And then whichever drops first, we jump and then say, oh, you have a cardiovascular disease. No, I'm aged. Next is going to be my brain. Next is going to be, so you better fix my system rather than just focus on my heart. So that's a big point. It's a very important point. So let's go back to your question on nutrition and is it all about calorie restriction? It's three factors in nutrition. Calorie restriction definitely is one of them. If today you ask most longevity experts, what is the single proven intervention that can extend human life? They will tell you calorie restriction. Some will say maybe NAD, they cannot prove it, maybe NMN, maybe parole on the fasting and vegan diet, which is the most proven actually from that sense. Maybe whatever, maybe turmeric, maybe. But the only one that's consistently proven, because the humans lived in calorie restriction, we can track those for years, is calorie restriction. Why is that so? Because every time, this is an important statement I'm going to make now, every time you eat, you age. Let me repeat it. Every time you eat, you age. It's like, what are you talking about? So when you eat, when you eat carbs, what increases in the blood? Insulin, right? What is insulin? It's a growth factor. When you eat proteins, and we villainize carb, we don't talk about proteins, we think they're all good. When you eat proteins, what increases in the blood? IGF. What IGF stands for? Insulin-like growth factor. And it's a perfect name. It's insulin-like, like the insulin that you ate carb and increase. It's a growth factor. This is why you eat protein, you grow muscle, because it's an elastic organ. But every other cell of the body aged. We grow it forward. We as humans, we grow forward towards our end. You kick the gas on a car, it just goes forward. And this is why, I'll give you the extreme case, all the bodybuilders, right? Look at Ronnie Coleman, look at most of them. At age 50, you think they're 70. They start developing a lot of diseases. They start in the NFL players, because their biological age is ahead of their chronological age. When they're 50, they're actually 65, 70. They start getting, hip issues, cardiovascular, brain, early Alzheimer's onset. This is all known because they actually accelerated their aging with high proteins and growth factors, etc. So every time you age, every time you eat, insulin is a growth factor, biological growth factor, and IGF is another. So the more you have spikes of insulin and IGF, the faster you age. This is why humanity is moving from meat to plant-based. The proteins in the meat spikes IGF the highest. This is why you grow muscle very fast. You eat meat, whey protein, animal source. You go to plant-based, this is what Arnold Schwarzenegger and everyone in Game Changer, if you watch that on Netflix, they're all moving plant-based because it spikes IGF lower. So you're aging at a lesser pace. If you eat a lot of carbs, you spike insulin, you become diabetic, you age fast, and you die early. So this is why calorie restriction minimizes those spikes of acceleration of aging, and therefore the body ages at a slower pace. Like if you're going on a car race, if you slow down, you get the last to the end, so you die the last. That's the exact same analogy. Now, there's another factor beyond the calories. It's actually the timing of the eating. And this is where the big notion of intermittent fasting and prolonged fasting, right? So the timing of the eating, the body actually was built to eat during the day, sleep and rest and rejuvenate during the night. If you eat during the night, although you don't feel it, the entire GI tract system is awake, it's digesting. You don't feel it because the parasympathetic nerve system doesn't wake you up, but actually you are almost up when you look at the brain waves. And if you have an aura ring or whatever, it's different when you eat late at night and you sleep, you have a lower quality sleep. So eating at night decreases the quality of the sleep, one of the pillars of longevity, increases the subconscious stress on the body, and decreases the rate of rejuvenation overnight. So you got to do your 12 hours of intermittent fasting. You want to lose weight, you can do 14 or 16. Don't go very long, because then you're starving the brain and the heart and the essential organ. People love to go 16 and 18 and 20. Yeah, you lose fat because you're starving your body, but now you're touching on essential organs. You're starving your brain, which works the most in the morning, by the way. When you said, I'm going to skip breakfast, you're starving your heart, your kidney. You want to go 12 to 14 hours. You don't want to go 16, 18. This frenzy of going 20 hours. Hey, if I'm obese and pre-diabetic, I'll do it because I have a short-term higher thing to gain from, but I wouldn't do this for the rest of my life because I got to protect my essential organs as well. I don't want to overstarve them. 12 to 14 hours seems to be what we call the circadian fasting, following sun, daylight, and nocturnal timelines.
So talk to me a little bit about the benefits of that, of fasting for 12 to 14 hours. Compare that to actually fasting in totality for 72 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
And then what, I didn't mean to interrupt your train of
That was
thought
the
though. I
third.
thought there was a
That was
part.
the third one.
Okay,
Yeah,
continue,
exactly.
please.
It's the
Yeah.
prolonged fast. So calorie restriction, fasting overnight, and then the third one is a prolonged fast, right? So why prolonged fasting is different. So I'll give you the example of a body fasting, like a company with no revenues. Okay, say you're the CEO of whatever T-Mobile, and you need $1 billion a month or whatever budget. Say you need 150 million a month to run T-Mobile, and now you have zero revenues. It's like the body fasting. It's like, okay, I have money in my checking account. I'll go and pull out that, right? So the body the first day goes to something called glycogen. These are they're carb rich reserved in the muscle, in the liver, etc. And that's your checking currency. Very fast you pull. So, intermittent fasters, they tap a lot into this because after 16 hours, 18 hours is what the body goes for. Now you go longer, end of day one, you go longer, you're leading AT&T and you have no money and you're depleting your checking account, you're going to go tap into your savings account. So by the end of day one, you're going to the fat, that's your savings account, and you're breaking down fat into ketones. And why ketones? Because ketones feed the brain so that you stay up and you go find food. This is how we survived hundreds of thousands of years of no or rare scarcity of food. So you're now depleting your savings account, end of day two. What are you going to do? You're going to go and ask for a credit. You're going to use the credit cards, or you're going to ask for a loan from the bank. So the body at the end of day two goes to the liver and says, hey, do something we call neoglucogenesis, meaning form new carbs and dump them, give us credit, dump them into the blood. And this is what the liver does end of day two. Now you're day three, you've depleted your checking account, savings account, and the bank says, I'm not going to give you any more money. What are you going to do? You're going to have to restructure the company. Now you're in a stress, not in a depletion. It's not just low calorie. You're in a stressful situation. And the prolonged fasting, the one word that I want people to understand, it's a stress. It's a deep stress on the body. And that deep stress, the body tells the cells, I cannot bring you any more calories. You got to rejuvenate. You got to structure. There's a worn down mitochondria. I'll eat it. Let me fix the DNA. Let me fix how we operate. Same way, you're running the companies like, let's cut the travel budget. Let's cut this. So you do the first level of restructuring. And this is an intracellular rejuvenation. This process is called autophagy, self-eat, self-rejuvenate. Mistakenly, everyone thinks if you skip breakfast, you get into autophagy. No, you still have a lot of fat to burn. You still have a lot of, if I delay a check to AT&T by a few hours, they're not going to go restructure the company. So you only get to autophagy for most people at end of day 2, early day 3. That's a big, because that's a Nobel Prize winner. Autophagy won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2016. And it happens end of day 2, early day 3. It does not happen with intermittent fasting. Unless you do intermittent fasting and you run a marathon, so you're depleting like tons of calories. It's like AT&T. I delay the check, and suddenly you invest in a $20 billion project at the same time. Yes, you're going to restructure at that time. So now you still have no money, day 4, day 5. What are you going to do? You're going to take a deeper phase of restructuring. You're going to fix now really sales, marketing. You're going to have to let some people go. Some people who are not your best and most brilliant, or they cost you a lot. They're brilliant, but they cost a lot. The body actually on day 5 starts now looking at the cells and saying, you're an old cell, you're a senescent cell. You're consuming food, you're not producing anything. You're actually triggering inflammation as well around you, which then triggers the T cells, the immune cells, and you're spending calories. So I got to shut you down because I'm in a crisis. We're starting seeing the body getting rid of old senescent cells and sick cells and replacing them with younger stem cells. So on day 5, there's a cellular regeneration. On day 3, it was autophagy rejuvenation, intracellular. On day 5, there's a regeneration. We see stem cells spiking in the blood.
So are you actually disposing of those prior cells that are
you're killing them.
damaged?
It's a process called apoptosis. We send them to die. The body starts selecting. It's triage. We got to survive. This is why the most important thing to remember is stress. Stress, even in exercise, you do CrossFit or you do a heavy intensive exercise, you say, oh, it's great for the heart because it builds new vessels, regeneration. Stress in life, nature, right? Autumn and then rejuvenation in spring. Stress rebuilds, not just adjusts, rebuilds. And the stress of fasting, because every cell in the body lives on calorie. When you fast the body for 5 days, every cell is under audit. It's restructuring and it's trying to survive. And if it cannot, or it's worn down or it's old, then it's gone. You do triage. And how we learned this, actually. So this is all coming from the science of the founder of our company, Walter Longo, top 50 most influential people in health. And Walter was a PhD student at UCLA 25 years ago, 30 years ago with Roy Walford. Roy Walford is the biggest, biggest calorie restriction, key opinion leader at his time. Now he passed away. But Roy Walford, if you remember the Biosphere Project, they secluded people in a true biosphere in the desert in Arizona, and they stayed for a month there. They ate 30% less every day, right? 30% less calorie, chronic calorie restriction. And Walter was a PhD student, and they left. They came out of it. They went back. They got tested. Then they ate normal. Then they got tested. And what Walter noticed is that their organs shrank on MRIs. The organs shrank. They were not dehydrated. They were just chronically depleted, right? And then when they refed, the organs went back to normal size. And it was structural. It wasn't like, less water, etc. So he was like, how come at adult age we can't regenerate new cells? And then he thought about it. I mean, if you cut your hand by accident in the kitchen, there's stem cells. There's a stress, there's a trauma. Let me fix the skin, right? So then he was, okay, instead of starving people for month and month, can we do several days of fasting at deeper stress so that the cells regenerate in the body and the body shrinks on day 4 or 5, and then when you refeed, the organs go back to normal side. And that's exactly what happens. So we started doing this prolonged fasting. So this is now not intermittent fasting. When you cross day 3, when you engage the cells, it's not metabolic. It's not I lose weight, I break down fat. When you cross day 3 and you're touching autophagy and regeneration, we call that periodic or prolonged fasting after day 3. And this is where the cells are engaged. So look what happens now in 5 days. You are restructuring all the metabolic part of the body, losing weight, losing fat, and which improves cholesterol, triglyceride, blood pressure, blood inflammation. So it's a full metabolic reset. On top of that, you're restructuring your cells and you're rejuvenating the cells. So you're getting biologically younger and you're healing at the cellular and metabolic level. And this is why prolonged fasting is probably the biggest medicine we have today. And I want to go back and answer your first question, why we have the crisis in the US. We lost fasting. We lost intermittent and we lost fast. We're eating all the time. Uber Eats at 11 p.m. Nobody's doing intermittent fasting overnight. Nobody fasts for several days. Our ancestors fasting is not a new thing. Fasting is the fad that we're living the last 40, 50 years is that we lost fasting. Our ancestors, by nature, for hundreds of thousands of years, there was no food every day. They couldn't call Uber Eats or store in fridge or have a supply chain. There were days, especially in the winter, there was no food at all. And it's like nature. The trees, the leaves go down, you restructure, and then in spring you go back up. It's like your laptop. You have to reset it, restart it every few days. Everything is like the Formula One car race. You take 2, 3 pit stops during the race. The engineers come in, they audit, they fix, and now you go stronger, longer. That's longevity of the car. We lost that. We just keep accelerating the car. We're eating high protein, high carb. So we're going faster on the track. And then we're finishing the race first, which is dying the first. And this is what's happening in the US. We lost eating less. We lost eating intermittently. And definitely we lost fasting for 5 days. When we discovered that, we said, we got to bring fasting back to the US. And this is how we developed the fasting mimicking nutrition with the help of the NIH and big governments helped us to develop the fasting mimicking diet to help people get the benefits, cellular benefits of fasting over 5 days while eating some food so they don't have a big stress on their body.
So tell us, like, what is it? Why would someone do a fast mimicking diet rather than just a straight up fast by itself? Is it just because? And I'm speaking from a little bit of trial and error at this point, because this year for the first time, I started doing a 3-day fast every month, but once a quarter I would do a 7-day fast. And the 3-day fast is actually much harder than the 7, for my opinion, because after you cross that third day,
That's
I,
usually
I
of the
felt
cells.
I felt amazing. I mean, my workouts were great. I'm totally
This is what I love
present.
about
My
fasting. You
everything's
feel it.
firing.
You feel it. It's not like, well, I'm talking about cellular rejuvenation. You feel it. You're like, I'm at
Oh
my
yeah,
best. Your skin even changes. You're looking
100%.
younger. You're fitter. You're better because you're younger. And this is why the fasting mimicking diet, Prola is the name of the product, is the only product with a fully issued patent on reversing the bioage and increasing health span. Fully issued patent in the US and in Europe on that. And the trials show that you decrease your biological age by 2.5 bioage years when you do 3 cycles of the prolonged fasting mimicking diet. And you feel it and you see it and you can measure it in the blood as well.
So what is a fast mimicking diet? I obviously can't. We don't want to get into your secret sauce, but what does it entail? What's
Yeah.
entailed in it?
I'm going to answer your first question first, which is why not water, right? Because we were a water fasting company. Like everything we studied was water fast. And then we saw that in mice, water fasting was actually increasing cure rate from breast cancer mice up to
So when you
93%.
just to clarify, when you say water fasting, consuming nothing but water.
Yes.
Okay.
So 15, 17 years ago, we were just doing trials on water fast, right? So we do mice and then we go to humans. We are actually the first Nutri-Tech company. So we do nutrition technology trials, like you develop a drug, a biotech develops drugs. We're the first Nutri-Tech of the world. We do nutrition, but we do it scientifically based, preclinical in mice and then clinical trials in humans. So we did the preclinical trials in mice. And in mice, you only do 3 days. 3 days in mice is like 5 days in humans because they have very fast metabolism. Another mistake, people read, oh, in mice, 3 days, therefore they do 3 days. It's not enough. That's another thing to watch out for. So 3 days in mice, we're increasing cancer cure rates to 93%. Diabetes reversal above 90%. The data is striking. Autoimmune disappears. It's curative to so many diseases. So we said, okay, great, let's do in humans 4 and 5 days, because again, 3 days in mice is equal to 5 days in humans. So we go with Mayo Clinic and we're doing the first cancer trial with water fasting. And it takes us a year and a half to recruit just 13 people because no CEO of AT&T wants to go bankrupt 5 days and then live through that restructuring. It's so difficult, right? So most people cannot do it. That's number one. So why to develop the fasting mimicking diet? Because 5 days of water fast is so difficult for 99% of people. Number two, it comes at a cost. We talked about all the benefits, but there are side effects, right? If you keep your body for 5 days with 0 calories, well, the brain has to function, right? The heart has to pump, the kidneys have to work, right? There's essential function in the body. Same way, yes, the CEO of AT&T is restructuring AT&T, but in the same time, Some of the best employees saying, you know what, this place is going to go bankrupt. Let me go to another company. He cannot order supply for next month's sales as well. So there's a price to pay to get there. And same way when you do water fast, yes, you're benefiting on a cellular level, but you're losing muscle. You're not feeding your brain well, perfectly well, etc. And the new stem cells that you want to produce, they're not being fed. There's no minerals, there's no macro and micronutrients to push them. When we went and we developed the fasting mimicking diet, we thought we'd be happy if we're like 80% there, 70% versus water fast. And actually in mice we were superior. And because of it's a funded fast. So go back, if you're the CEO of AT&T and instead of you need 150 million per month, if I come and say, you know what, I'm going to give you 50 million out of the 150, but you'll pay it for the employees to keep the best. You pay it for your supply. You pay it for utilities because you got to survive. And in the meantime, restructure your sales, your marketing, your tech. It's a healthier restructure. You're funding the correction. So we saw in mice better stem cell production and better rejuvenation in mice with IBD and GI tract disease. We're showing that the fasting mimicking diet is supportive, is a better supportive funded fast. I call it this. I always call it the funded fast. So in many aspects, the fasting mimicking diet is making fasting compliant, safer, and it's supporting actually not having the side effects. The biggest of them all is muscle protection. So you mentioned GLP-1, and the fasting mimicking diet is showing better, superior to GLP-1 by so many aspects. One of them is it's the only diet where you lose a lot of fat fast. It's the fastest way to lose fat is fasting, except you protect the muscle. It doesn't happen with water fast. So why? Remember I said one of the most important words to remember is the stress. When you have a stress on the cells, there's two hormones that increase. There's stress hormones, the cortisol and growth hormone. They increase with stress. Why growth hormone? Because when the body, remember, like tigers, like us humans in nature, if there's no food, you want to push the growth factors so the muscle goes and hunts or finds the next fruit and vegetable. So growth hormone increases. In water fasting, the muscle is not fed. So there's growth hormone is high, but there's nothing to feed the muscle to preserve it. With the prolon, with the fasting mimicking diet, you have high growth hormone, and there's nutrition for the muscle. So you see the muscle being protected and rejuvenated. I cannot give names, but big NBA players, big tier one, I'm saying, big NFL players, they actually do the fasting mimicking diet for muscle performance. They do it when they're injured or off season. They cut a lot of fat and they rejuvenate the muscle without losing muscle. It's a very, very major intervention because this is the secret behind why it works so much on diabetes, right? The diabetes drugs, yeah, you fix insulin resistance, but you lose muscle. The GLP-1 is a never-ending, vicious cycle, right? You lose a lot of weight, but 25 to 40% is muscle. The day you stop them, you're a slow machine, you're a lower metabolic rate, you pick up the weight super fast. You do prolon, you just burned fat, you protected muscle, you rejuvenated the body. It's like when you do 3 to 7 days. You told me 7 days I feel better. You're a very effective machine, but you lose a little bit of muscle. This is why I recommend you do it with prolon instead of water.
Well, so in Prolon, the one thing I was taking was protein. I was taking sort of protein shakes, but that's probably,
So then
I'm
you're
not
not
suggesting
fasting.
that's not enough. So what's in the Prolon?
No, but
Because it seems like it would have to have enough protein, but very low calorie.
But then you were not fast. You were not doing the rejuvenative fast. You were doing a ketogenic diet. When you take proteins, they take proteins, the cells know that you're eating. they're deprived of carbs, so they do a ketogenic. When you go ketogenic, it's not a deep enough of a fast to rejuvenate the cells. It's like AT&T say, you know what? I'm going to give you the most important thing that you need, which is funding. You're giving the CEO funding. It's not going to restructure. So this is why when you talk fasting, you talk autophagy, regeneration. When you talk ketogenic, you don't talk about rejuvenation and autophagy and cellular rejuvenation because the cells get protein. They're not fasting. They're not starving. They're not stressing. So when you do prolon, this is what took us, just FYI to whomever is listening to us here, we have now 47 human trials on prolon. 47, more than the GLP-1 trials across all the big pharma. And it took us $48 million to develop the fasting mimicking diet, develop and test prolon. $48 million. Because we had to study every macro and every micronutrients in every cell the cells have nutrient sensing pathways. They have sensors and they sense food, right? So we had to understand how much food can go with every sensor without triggering the satiety. The PKA, the TOR, the RAS pathway. We had to study how much we can increase insulin and IGF without having the body realize that it's eating. It took us 13 years and $48 million to develop the fasting mimicking diets. Very serious. You look at it; it's a plant-based, healthy, tasty Prolon. You open it; it's soups, it's bars. So you're like, oh, this is soups and bars, and it's a super high technology actually. Now it has 221 patents, 47 clinical trials, and $48 million just in funding to develop it.
So where do you think the next steps of longevity are? Like, talk to me about like senolytics, rapamycin. Like, where do you see some of those factors playing
Yeah.
in?
I mentioned I classified intervention in longevity or health span into three levels, and I presented that at the health span summit again in LA. I was the keynote. The first level is give us back the stolen years. I'm the only guy that talks that, right? Because I think we're stolen 10 years of our life because of the food and the toxicity and the environment and the stress and the sleep. So how can we just go back? We improved healthcare. Why we're not living 80 and 90 and 100? We should be there. So lifestyle medicine and longevity lifestyle is tier number one. Let us just reverse the damage that our recent lifestyle is putting on our body. This can give you up to 10 years. Then you have an intervention that can improve, reduce your biological age, and therefore add a new layer now of health span. So go from 100 to 120, right? This is where the senolytics are trying. This is where the NAD plus, the NMNs, every intervention trying to work on the telomeres or work on the mitochondria or on the efficiency or keeping the cell younger. And then you have a moonshot that's level 3. It's a big moonshot. It's the escape velocity, right? Is how can we understand exactly genetically how we age? And can we play on the structure of the genetics? Like what are the genes? And there's no one, because otherwise we would have discovered there's a full set. How come a cell is born and then the body is born and there's like a clock? All of us, like we look at age 10, this like this, look at a person can guess their age, right? How come we're clocked to grow and then start going down after 40 and then die? There's something built in us, right? Can we find those combinations? Can we play on them? And can we figure out a way to reach this escape velocity? Meaning, can we age backwards? Can every year when you blow your candle, can you actually go back 1+ year younger? And therefore you're actually aging backwards. And that's a big moonshot. And this is where a lot of billionaires are putting a lot of money into disruptive potential technologies that can hopefully one day get there. I don't know if it's going to happen, but these are the 3 layers of interventions that you can classify any product in.
Well, I know that there are other people out there, but what do you think of the Brian Johnsons of the world?
So, and I know Brian Johnson personally. I think Brian has, to his credit, he's trying to do the right thing for people, and he's not a top longevity scientist, right? So, and he doesn't claim so, and he's not like sitting doing clinical trials and putting the super stuff, but he was able to put his money to at least put an expert team to review everything that can help with longevity, right? Like intermittent fasting. This is why Brian Johnson stops eating at 11 to 1 max. He's doing intermittent fasting. He's doing the right way, meaning he stops eating early the day before instead of skipping breakfast. Breakfast is important. You want to feed the brain in the morning and the heart, because in the morning is when they work. And you don't want to feed them when they're sleeping. So Brian Johnson got it right to a lot of degrees, because he just put a scientific team to review and summarize things that we know but people are not doing, and he uses his influencer power to tell people to do the right thing. So we credited him for that. Now sometimes he steps into things that could be proven, could not be proven, right? We don't know if infrared light's going to help you. Like, but at least I commend him for trying to do the right thing. And you just need a higher level of filtration and saying to clarify to people, we're sure about this because there's enough trials. We're not sure about that. You can try it. It's part of biohacking now and leading like an early movement, which might help you, might not, but we don't know. So that's my opinion.
The one thing I give him a lot of credit for is just sort of taking the bull by the horns and experimenting on himself. And I think, I've got a poor man version of some of that where, at least getting more blood tests. I know you're partnering with Parsley now, what L-Nutra is. Those types of services are providing a lot more transparency into what's going on. And so the whack-a-mole approach to solving some of your own issues is less opaque. It becomes a little bit more. And also, I'm curious to hear your take, but I've started to take those blood tests, take some of my biometric data from my Oura Ring, from my Apple Watch. I'm experimenting with this with the Apollo Vegas nerve thing, which I don't know if that's going to be a benefit or not, but I do seem to be sleeping slightly better. I'm getting a little bit more deep sleep, and I am noticing a difference.
Yeah,
But feeding that into AI and helping me to understand, I don't take it at 100% factual. I'll feed it into more than one,
yeah,
but at least I'm having a conversation that's more extensive, that's
yeah.
ongoing, that is tracking a more holistic perspective that I feel is lacking. Oftentimes, when we go to our primary care physician, they're looking at one set of sort of whether it's blood tests or your BMI or your weight, whatever that is. But I think it's really informative to have the other spokes to the wheel contributing to how you're viewing an approach sort of holistically.
100%. Look, I'm hugely in favor of all this until it doesn't touch do no harm, right? We as doctors swear do no harm. So the fact that you're measuring, when you measure, that's the basics of Peter Drucker and business. If you measure, you manage, right? The fact that you measure, this is what makes you think now. This is why you're talking. You, Marcus, 5 years ago, wouldn't even know anything about longevity, about all the fact that you can measure, you can think, you can read your curiosity, you're talking to your wife, you're talking to your kids. It's actually helping the entire family live a better life. Number two, there are a lot of small things that you can do on a daily basis that will increase your longevity. You eat healthier, you stress less. Now, when you start touching on intervention, I take the supplement, I do this. As long as there and maybe can help or proven to help, but no harm, this is where I think the fine line is, right? And I always tell people, in medicine, why we do randomized clinical trial, why we do intervention arm and control arm? Because if you tell somebody you're doing something, there's a placebo effect, which is 20% regardless, right? So, so unless you're doing no harm, the fact that you're doing something, even if it's helping is great. If it's not helping, it's raising awareness and it's putting you on the right track to think the right way.
I know we're coming up on time, so I want to ask you at least one question about you, which is what is your day to day like? Like give us insight into the expert's day of what are you consuming, what time are you waking up, and look, there's variables. You travel a lot, you're going all over the place, but on a given ideal type of day, what does that look like from the point you go to bed the night before
Yeah.
to the time you go to bed the next day?
You said it right. As a CEO, I get a lot of disturbed pattern from traveling. But what I try to do the most is, and this one recommendation I think is the most impactful probably on people's life. Try to go to sleep a little bit hungry. This resolved everything in life, because if you're a little bit hungry when you sleep, you're going to sleep and rejuvenate rather than sleep and stay awake subconsciously. Then you're going to have energy in the morning. You're going to eat your breakfast, which is the right thing to do. You're going to have a very high energetic day the next day. You're going to lose weight because you're not going to sleep on storage. You're going to sleep on burning. It changes a lot in your life. You got to eat your dinner early and try to, and this is a big challenge even for me personally. I stay up to 2, 3 a.m. and sometimes that's my biggest temptation. I'm super hungry by 1 a.m. and I fail if I eat. So I try the best. Eat your dinner at 7 and try to resist as long as possible. Number two is that's the intermittent fasting. Try to do 12 to 14 hours. Most centenarians, actually, one big common factor, we said social capital, and they do intermittent fasting without knowing. But they sleep early. They're not sophisticated at home with Uber Eats and Netflix and popcorn, and they sleep early and they wake up, they have their breakfast, so they have a good 12 hours of intermittent fasting. I definitely do prolonged 3 to 4 times a year. That's my consistent. I just finished my 26th cycle last month. That's actually my biggest rejuvenative weapon at this age. I have small tactics. I most of the time on my earpods because I love to walk. When I always have when I pick my offices, they have to have a walking distance inside, and or otherwise I'm walking downstairs just to move. You got to do your 10,000 steps. But we used to talk about exercise. Now we talk about movements, right? Even every 30 minutes, that 2 3 minutes of movements is important. So try to intermittently always move. The move is seemingly as important as the activity. And from time to time, 3 times a week, I do very intensive bench weighting or push. That's the stress. I use stress with fasting. I use stress on my muscle with weights. It awakens mitochondria. It increases the demand for new vessels. Again, triggering regeneration. Right. Part of the secrets of aging backward is regenerate new cells and new pathways. And I do it with the stress of exercise and the stress of fasting.
Good feedback. Anything you think we may have missed or you want to close out on?
We said hopefully we're going to change somebody's life today. I think a lot of what we said, if you guys do 5% of it, it's going to hopefully add a good time to your life. I think going back to social capital, remain happy. Happiness, family, friends is the essence of everything. When you're happy, you exercise, you have more energy, you eat better, you sleep better, you stress less. So we're losing this sense of humanity, this sense of family, this sense of happiness. We're becoming like robots, stressed. We eat bad. It just we're hurting ourselves. We're not meant on this planet to be the best employee in this company. This is not what we're on this planet for. We're on this planet to take care of ourselves, take care of people around us, leave positive memories and positive energy and impact and social impact. Focus on that. You'll be happy. You live healthy and long.
Well, I think you're doing that for us. Thank you, Dr. Antoun.
Thanks for listening. For a detailed list of episodes and show notes, visit scalesofsuccesspodcast.com. If you found this conversation engaging, consider signing up for our newsletter, where we go even deeper on a weekly basis, sharing exclusive insights and actionable strategies that can help you in your own journey. We'd also appreciate if you subscribed, rated, or shared today's episode. It helps us to attract more illuminating guests, adding to the list of enlightening conversations we've had with New York Times bestsellers, producers, founders, CEOs, congressmen, and other independent thinkers who are challenging the status quo. You can also follow us for updates, extra content, and more insights from our guests. We hope to have you back again next week for another episode of Scales of Success. Scales of Success is an Edge West Capital production.